We're kind of like in our own little mini plague going on. Everybody's a lot of people sick, but we're getting better. A lot of people are getting better. So I was kind of sick this week. Well, I was pretty sick, really sick this week, and then I got better. And Baruch Hashem. So, but then last night, my wife and my baby got sick, and Virgil. They all got sick like around the same time. And Charity was sick like what, couple weeks ago. And yeah, some of the other ones were sick last week, so they're kind of like getting past for them. But so this week we're going over bow. The word bow means come, and so the word within the phrasing there, it says come to Pharaoh, which means go talk to Pharaoh. Another interesting little thing I learned last night. It's the word bow means the numerical value of bow is 3, and the sages like to connect that with the 3 final plagues that are given in that portion of bow. So they can try to connect everything together. So here we're in Exodus, and I'm reading from Rabbi Hammer's book. What's it called? A Year with the Sages. So, Rabbi Hammer wrote this book, but he kind of grabbed a little piece. It's kind of like a little devotion, essentially. So from Exodus, I'll read. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they are to eat. For that night I will go through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and I will mete out punishments to all the gods of Egypt. I, the Lord, and the blood on the houses where you are stained shall be a sign for you. When you see the blood, ufasati, that's the term, ufasati, I will protect you. So, I will protect you. Ufasati means I will protect you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. But Moses then summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, go, pick out the lambs for your families and slaughter Pesach, the Pesach offering. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood that is in the basin, and apply some of the blood that is in the basin to the lintel and to the 2 doorposts. None of you shall go outside the door of his house until morning. For when the Lord goes through to smite the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the lintel and the 2 doorposts. And the Lord, Ufasa, will protect the door and not let the destroyer enter and smite your home. And when your children ask you, what do you mean by this rite? You shall say, it is the Pesach sacrifice to the Lord, because he protected Pasa, the houses of the Israelites in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, but saved our houses. So in this translation, they translated that word fasa, ufasa, to mean protect. But as we know, usually that word is translated as Passover, right? Because that's the word we use in English. And so I thought it was pretty interesting. So then they're going to, the peshat of this verse is there's a plague that's the worst plague that has ever hit Egypt has come, and the Egyptians had to take in a lamb into their home for a few days, which in and of itself was kind of a what do you call it? Not a good thing, not a thing you shouldn't do according to Egyptian thing. And so they did that, and then they also sacrificed that lamb, and I think that I think the lamb or the sheep was like some type of god or some kind of god for the Egyptians. So by doing this, it was like all in the face of the Egyptians, like, look at your gods mean nothing, that kind of thing. And so the whole idea of Pesach was pretty much against the Egyptians and showing that Hashem was going to protect them. So then the sages had something to say, or they're going to break down these verses. So I'll start here. It says, shall be a sign for you and not me, a sign for you and not for others. When I see the blood, Rabbi Ishmael would say, is not everything revealed before God? So that, it's saying, when I see the blood, but Hashem speaking, when I see the blood. But Rabbi Ishmael would say, is not everything revealed before God? Then what then can the meaning of when I see the blood? As a reward for your performance of the commandment of slaughtering the lamb and applying the blood, I will reveal myself and care for you. As it is said, ufasati alechem. And fasati means to care for and protect. As we see in the verse, like the birds that fly, even so will the Lord of hosts shield Yerushalayim, shielding and saving Pesach, and protecting and rescuing. That's found in Isaiah 31, verse 5. When I see the blood of the binding of Isaac, as it is said, and Avraham named the site, Adonai Yireh, the Lord will see. Genesis 22, verse 14. I will protect. Rabbi Joshua said, read not ufasati, but ufasaati, step over. For the Lord skipped over the houses of the Israelites and in Egypt. As it is said, hark, my beloved. Here he comes, skipping over mountains, bounding over hills. That's found in Songs of Songs, chapter 2, verse 8. And Rabbi Jonathan says, I will protect you. You will I, God, protect, but I will not protect the Egyptians. So, the early sages had different ideas about these words and about this meaning of these verses. It seems like Rabbi Jonathan, Rabbi Joshua was the only one that kind of interpret it as Passover or passing over, skipping over. And it seems like the other ones, Ishmael and Rabbi Jonathan, they all translated it as protecting. So I think it's interesting that we take maybe there's others, I don't know, but in this section, only one of them has translated it as Passover. But I thought it was interesting because I have always known it as Passover only. I've never really known it as protect. So I think that's pretty interesting for me to learn a different way to learn about it, a different meaning. And obviously he did protect, and I feel like the reason why the rabbis translated it that way is so that it would be more of a proactive thing that Hashem was doing, as opposed to just not doing something. He's actually doing something to protect, as opposed to just skipping over or passing over. I think that's why they did that. And then Rabbi Hammer added his own little personal idea or his personal experience. So he said when he was a youth, he tried to help people that were in Russia, the Jews in Russia, to get to Israel, kind of like another exodus, right, out of Russia this time. And it was a time when they were still communist, and so it wasn't free, wasn't allowed. They weren't really allowed to leave. So they had to do all these kind of little things to get them out. And he said he got quite a few out, but there were still some that left behind, and he was kind of sad about that. But then later on, when communism fell, they all were able to. He was able to see them in Israel as opposed to see them in Russia. And so I guess his connection was that he kind of felt like he was a little bit kind of like Moses in that he was trying to like get people free from a tyrannical kind of like government or place and get them back into the land of Egypt. And so I guess he has more of a personal connection with that. Me, I have no connection. I've lived in America, been blessed, and spoiled, but who knows? Maybe one day we might have to flee this land as well. So we should always be prepared. And I know right now Israel is not the most free of nations, it seems to me. However, it could be in the future. We don't know. It could be better than any of the U.S. We don't know. When Mashiach comes, definitely. Right now, though, I feel like where we are in Texas, maybe some of the other southern states, we still have our freedoms, and we are still blessed here, and even especially with the anti-abortion stuff that we're doing here and whatnot. I think we're being blessed here in this state, and I just feel like if that's ever taken away, or we're somehow we get bad people in our government, in our state government, it could change. So we've got to be at least ready. Continue to be active in what we can do, and continue to teach those around us that the truths that we know, but we also have to be ready to flee, I guess, to flee to Israel, when the time comes. Hopefully by then they will be more free than we are. I mean, I have friends that I work for an Israeli company, and my friends there in Israel, and they're it's pretty bad. There's a lot of forced things that they are being forced to do over there. I need to talk to them more, because I only hear what the news says and what they say, but I'm wondering if they're just doing it to be compliant, the friends that I have there, or if they really are being kind of forced to do things. I know like the opinion of one, she's more outspoken, and she seems to be more compliant about stuff. And so I need to talk to some of my other friends there and see, like, can you really, like maybe just not do things, that kind of thing. So I'll have to ask him. But anyway, so, with this, with the times we are in, and how, Pesach is coming up, Hashem gives us multiple times to hear the Pesach story. We hear it now, and then we hear it again during Pesach, and it seems like it comes up throughout the year, to flee Egypt, to flee Egypt, to let Hashem protect you, and we need to just keep that in our mind, keep that story close to us, and know that we are different, we are special, and Hashem wants to continue to use us as his servants and use us as his people. May we continue to be shining lights in this world for him. I don't know if anybody else has anything to share.
Just briefly, just something real quick to be encouragement.
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
So I just want to share something briefly just to bring some encouragement in light of so much anti-Semitism and just a spirit of doubt in general, especially in our American culture right now, where everyone says, why believe in anything? If you are not familiar with Rabbi Chaim Richman, he's the previous director for the Temple Institute, and he has a wonderful ministry called Jerusalem Lights. You can find him online. And there is a weekly podcast that he does with an Egyptologist. So I want to share a little bit about what I learned last week, because when we're so bombarded with doubt, one of the greatest things that doubters will try to accuse us of is the story of the Exodus. To go back to talking about all these plagues being against the gods, the ram god of Egypt, I think he was like Musha or something. I'm going to terribly mess up the name. I don't remember what the Egyptians' ram god was, but he was the god of life. And that is why Hashem had to attack the god of life at the finality with the death of the firstborn. But I want to share this, that when people are telling us that the word of Hashem, the Torah, these things did not really happen, the Egyptologist had shared that there is a famous scroll. It's called the Ibor Papyrus. And the Ibor Papyrus goes back to the Old Kingdom, which is believed to be the time frame of when the Exodus happened. Now, this is an Egyptian secular scroll that was found in the tombs. And in that scroll, it details every single one of these plagues. The family that they believed that was in power at that time, when they unearthed their tombs, the entire family is covered in scars from boils. So I want to share that there is plenty of historical and archaeological evidence out there to prove the Torah and all these great wonders that Hashem has done. And I know that many people who are strong believers in Hashem still can be susceptible, because especially we get weak in spite of our circumstances and we say, when is Mashiach coming? But I want to encourage you that do not have doubt in this time. Be faithful. Even secular records prove that Hashem did mighty works. And he says that in the latter days, what he did in Egypt won't even be spoken of, because what he does in the latter days will be even greater.
Do you gentlemen have anything to share back
I have something. This is like
there?
yeah. Let's see. Okay. So I just thought this is interesting, but like I was, as I was reading the portion, I was like thinking about this video that I was watching on like literature, and it was talking about like different like collateral damage and like known plays that are like pretty old, but like I think there's like a lot about that here too, like because Pharaoh's hubris is like what causes the people to not be let go, and then Hashem hardens his heart so then he can perform his signs on him. But like, well, Pharaoh's having his heart hardened. It actually mentions that his courtiers were also having their hearts hardened. And then I just thought it was interesting that like it says that, but at the same time, it also says that Pharaoh's courtiers said to him, "How long shall this one snare us? Let the men go and worship the Lord of their God. Are you not aware that Egypt is lost?" So I think that it was like, even at a certain point, like even the people around Pharaoh started realizing that like this is like there's not an amount of like their hearts were hardened, but even then they could realize. And then Pharaoh was just so blinded, and then he caused so much damage to all these people around him. And it wasn't like the people of Egypt were completely innocent, because as we know, whenever the Israelites left, there was Egyptians that left with them, so they could have turned around and avoided some of these things, or just like repented and tried to become part of the people of Israel. But it's really like you can see this like collateral damages applies in like a lot of situations, like even in like our normal day-to-day life. Like obviously people's decisions don't only affect them and other people's decisions affect like a lot of people. And if you're like at the wrong place at the wrong time with the like around the wrong people, that could obviously affect you. And I just thought that was really interesting, like tying that back into this week, that what I was looking at.
All right, thank you, my Mercy. All right, Vicky, you had something? What'd you say? Why not?
It's interesting that the Drash was saying about the Egyptian scroll, because when I was growing up, we went to a Reform synagogue, and they were trying to prove that the plagues were basically scientific. Like, why did the Egyptians have boils? Well, the Hebrews would wash with soap and water, and the Egyptians would just put oils on themselves and not bathe. Well, I mean, that's easily refuted. Just play the devil's advocate. Let's assume that's true. Okay. So if that's true, then they've been doing that for hundreds of years before the Exodus. Why is it they didn't have boils until that time? See, and they were trying to say that, well, Moshe knew the area very well, and he knew the tide pools for the Yam Suf, the Red Sea. Well, and they said the Red Sea was just basically like a big stream or something like that, a big creek, not really a sea. Well, if it was just a big creek, what would tide pools have to do with people drowning in it? It would be impossible to drown in a small creek like that. So
Yeah.
I think that, anybody who tries to prove that any of these are scientific is going to fall flat on their face.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's all I've got to say.
All right. All right, Chicky, you're going to share something? All right. You need the mic. Chicky's going to share over here.
Exodus 10, chapter 10, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Come to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, in order that I may place these signs of mine in his midst." The name of this week's Torah portion, bo, means come. Another way to translate bo is enter or penetrate. The Zohar states that Moses was commanded to enter room after room, penetrating to the very core of Pharaoh's palace. The Zohar continues and says that Moses was scared of this command. He was overwhelmed by the command that required him to confront evil at its very core. To reassure Moses, Hashem told him to come, or in Hebrew, bo, meaning Hashem was already there and he would stand by Moses as he confronted Pharaoh. This command contains both the push of personal action and the reward of having Hashem's guidance. Moses had to go to Pharaoh on his own, but Hashem was waiting there to support him while he faced Pharaoh. This duo is shown in the many challenges in our lives today. We must penetrate to the core of all the challenges we face. It is understandable that we would be scared to do that, because if we weren't, then it's not a real challenge. And yet we should do it anyway. We have the power to overcome any challenge because Hashem will always be waiting to stand with us. And once we see that Hashem is there supporting us, the challenge won't be so scary anymore. Hashem encourages us to push ourselves while also supporting us through it all. Hashem is the one that gives us strength. We just have to make sure that we take the first few steps.
I could say something.
All right.
Probably one of Rabbi Sachs' best essays that I like is off this portion, and he starts out by talking about how the 10 plagues struck, and the people were the first to understand that Pharaoh was the last, that God was on the side of freedom and human dignity, and that you cannot build a nation, however strong your police or army, by enslaving some for the benefit of others. History will turn against you as it has every tyranny known to mankind. And so he sets it up as, the time's arrived for the Israelites to be free. They're on the brink of the release. And, of all the things that Moses could talk about at this time, he could talk about, the liberty, the breaking of their chains, the end of their slavery. He could have talked about the destination that they were going to, a land flowing with milk and honey. He could have talked about any of those things. But what he ends up talking about is he ends up speaking about children and the duty essentially to pass on the memory of to the generations that are yet to come. So 3 times in this, when he talks, he says, when your children say to you, what does this ceremony mean to you? And when he's telling them to keep the Passover sacrifice, he says, on that day, tell your son, I do this because of what Hashem did for me when I came out of Egypt. And another time, when your son asks you, what does this mean? With a mighty hand, Hashem brought us out of Egypt from the land of slavery. So, being about to gain their freedom, and whether people realize this or not, is, Judaism has been huge on education and throughout all history. So essentially, it's like they're told to become a nation of educators, and they said this is what made Moshe a not just a great leader, but a unique one, and that the Torah is teaching that freedom is won not on the battlefield or in the political arena or in the courts, national, international, but in the human imagination and will. To defend a country, you need an army, but to defend a free society, you need schools. You need families and an education system in which ideals are passed on from one generation to the next, never lost, despaired of, or obscured. There has never been more profound understanding of freedom. It is not difficult, Moses was saying, to gain liberty, but to sustain it is the work of 100 generations. Forget it and you lose it. Obviously, we see, the times we're in now is pretty abhorrent. We kind of slide on one thing and it goes for a long time. Freedom needs 3 institutions: parenthood, education, and memory. You must tell your children about slavery and a long journey to liberation. They must annually taste the bread of affliction and the bitter herbs of slave labor. They must know what oppression feels like if they are to fight against it in every age. And so Jews became the people whose passion was education, whose citadels were schools, and whose heroes were teachers. And so learning Talmud Torah is the very foundation of Judaism, the guardian of our heritage and hope. And that is why when tradition conferred on Moses the greatest honor, it did not call him our hero, our prophet, or our king. It simply called him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher. For it is in the arena of education that the battle for the good society is lost or won. So.
Very good. Yes, it's good to teach our children. I mean, Pesach, the whole Pesach is geared for kids. One year we did just a kids one. It was more fun, more. I don't think the adults would have enjoyed it, but at that time all we had was kids around us.